Hey, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Frank About Health. If you are watching this show, it is Thursday, May 23rd, 2024. However, in all transparency, it is a pre-recorded show, and that is because of the nature of our guests. Two interesting individuals, thanks to Jeff Demitrack, who have comorbidities in their lives, which are actually influencing their epilepsy. And in some cases, their epilepsy influences their comorbidity. So that being said, I definitely have to issue my disclaimers for this particular episode. There are going to be stories and comments and narratives that are not the views of TalkRadio.nyc or Frank About Health, but they are solutions that fit the individuals that will talk about their epilepsy story. And it is their choice whether it is medically advised or whether it is advised within family and friends that is there to inform all of you listeners and viewers out there as something to consider if you also suffer from the types of epilepsy you're about to learn. These are not our ways of telling you what medications to take. If you want to go and view new solutions with your neurologist or your PCP, primary care physician. Also, one of our guests is in Canada. So I have to give you a little recommendation, even on air, Shelley. There is a pharmacy in Vancouver, Mark's Marine Pharmacy, where I get my epilepsy medication from by mail. And I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they were guests on my show a couple years ago. And they are affordable. And I believe they even offer medical cannabis. So we could talk about that offline. But the thing is that I just am proud to bring another stage of epilepsy podcast, thanks to Jeff. And it's a stage that we really don't speak about often, but we infer, which is about your comorbidities. Comorbidities can be mental health related. They can be physical health related. You're going to learn about a case involving fibromyalgia, and you're going to learn about a case involving diabetes type 2. But just want to point out that the big lesson in the hour, and hopefully, Jeff, with the interviews you'll have with both our guests, we will learn which is the bigger trigger, the epilepsy or the comorbidity. So that being said, our first two guests are Shelley Thiemann and Lisa Goldman, correct?
Goodman.
I apologize.
That's okay.
All right. But the thing is that I welcome you both to Frank About Health. And I think let's start with you, Jeff, in introducing each one, because I know you have been working with them through Instagram.
Okay, well, first I'm going to say that May is a big month for awareness. It's Mental Health Awareness Month, and it's also Brain Tumor Awareness Month. And at the later, right now, actually, Epilepsy Awareness Week, which is usually based around the fears and stigma surrounding epilepsy. And that is so important because also there is stigma surrounding mental health or mental illness as well. So, and, people with epilepsy are 3 to 5 times likely to be diagnosed with something like depression, anxiety, and also suicide is also a risk as well. So. Yeah, and so our first guest is Shelley, and she has epilepsy as well as other diagnoses, and I'm sure that that is a difficult problem, of course, and but she would know more about fibromyalgia and how the chronic pain and the migraines, the headaches, the stomach problems, how that affects her life, and maybe sometimes triggers seizures. First, unmute yourself, Shelley, and then go on from there. Unmute yourself, yeah.
Hi, everybody. My name's Shelley. I'm from Canada, and we have a lot of different laws in Canada compared to the United States. I have a genetic form of epilepsy, so I was born with it. All 3 of my children have epilepsy. They're adults. They're in their mid-30s. And I have the type of epilepsy that you can't control with any kind of anticonvulsant medication. I've been through 12 of them. I suffered a 30-minute status seizure coming off Keppra in the hospital. And then I suffered another 7-minute status seizure, which caused extensive right side brain damage. And then on my hippocampus, I'm missing 90% of one side. And on the other side, to go in conjunction with Brain Tumor Awareness Month, I have a benign brain tumor wrapped around my hippocampus that they cannot operate on. So because it's generalized, my brain's messed up, there's nothing they can do about it. So when I heard over 12 years ago that there was no medication that was going to help me, that my next seizure was probably going to be my last, it was like, oh, okay, this is crazy. And the fact that I had just hit my early 40s and hit perimenopause, and for a woman at that age with certain types of epilepsy, it goes crazy. All of a sudden, I went from having maybe one seizure a year from partying too much or not sleeping enough to having seizures like every single day, like absolutely crazy epilepsy. And then because of the company I was working for, to be on long-term disability, you actually have to go through every single medication. And that causes stomach problems. All those benzos cause stomach problems. It caused brain fog. It caused brain damage coming off Keppra. And it caused extreme nausea. I am nauseated every single day of my life. And when people say, how can you be nauseated every single day of your life? I'm like, trust me, when you're sick with cancer or something, you're sick with nausea every day. I am sick with nausea every day, and so that drops my weight. My weight was down to 80 pounds. My neurologist said, Shelley, if you don't gain weight, your organs are going to start to shut down. But the smell of food made me sick. It would cause seizures, and then you're not sleeping. That causes seizures. Everything. I have probably 20 different triggers right now that cause seizures. And then as soon as I go through a cycle, all of a sudden, boom, fibromyalgia. Never had it before in my life. And I was driving back through the beautiful Rocky Mountains yesterday. It was about an 8-hour drive. I woke up in the morning. I had what I call a flare day, where it feels like somebody threw me out of a pickup truck doing about 100 kilometers an hour, American miles. And my body was so sore, and all I could think was, I have to drive across 3 mountain ranges to get back home. And so I do alternative medicine in Canada for all of my treatment. I do medical cannabis, which is very legal in Canada. I advocated for it. I also advocated for legalization here in Canada as well, and try to educate our government senators on exactly what medical cannabis does for people with epilepsy. And so,
and I'm sure that helps with the chronic pain too, right?
Absolutely. I find that like the benzos made all my teeth fall out. I don't know why, but all of a sudden all my teeth fell out. I had beautiful teeth. And when they did the full extraction, they gave me pills, and I can't take pills. So what I did is I took a high THC topical cream, and it had CBD in it as well. So you're getting rid of the pain, you're getting rid of the inflammation. And I just rubbed it on my face. That was the only thing I used for 2 weeks. When I went back to see my surgeon, he said that was the fastest he had seen anybody heal.
Wow.
But how does it affect your memory, though?
My memory's done, because my hippocampus is your main memory center of your brain. And since that's gone, my memory since the status seizure is like gone.
Yeah. So you don't even have to worry about that anyway. So
no.
Well, you were talking about your physical issues and how you might have stomach issues. You can relate to this as well, Lisa. With stomach issues and how it impacts your epilepsy, right?
Big time. The metformin that I take completely tears my stomach up. And like she said, you're nauseous being on that medication. So you don't want to eat. And then, you feel like you're not taking care of yourself. So stressing, anxiety kicks in, and then poof, seizure.
Yeah.
That happens.
And have you ever had a diabetic seizure? You on being
no
diabetic?
No, I haven't, thankfully. Mine only happen the nocturnal seizures are right when I fall asleep. And it's just that I haven't had one in the daytime or anything. They've just all been nocturnal.
And how do you feel after a nocturnal seizure?
They're all grand mals, so awful.
Yeah.
The legs sore.
Yeah.
The next day is you just want to sleep. And it's hard. The anxiety kicks in because then you're scared to fall asleep. You're like, I don't want to go to sleep, but I have to go to sleep. So it's.
Well, we're about to take our first break in a couple minutes, so I want to ask you a few quick questions, Lisa. And then in the next section, Shelley, I have a lot of questions that come from your story. And I'm even coming with an interpretation as to what is driving your mental and neurological health. But Lisa, are your epileptic seizures, I know you mentioned they're nocturnal, but are they genetic in nature, or was it based on a trauma to your mind, to your brain rather?
I have a lot of trauma. Anxiety has been a big problem since I was a child. A lot of things happened. So, I mean, my dad and brother do both have epilepsy, but theirs are not nocturnal. Theirs are totally just at the drop of a hat. They could go into some, and both of them are on different medication, but it's weird. I was like, I thought I was in the clear, and then got that gene, and I was like, oh no.
Incredible. Well, I guess this is how I can identify with both of you. I also have genetically based epilepsy, but during a seizure that I had over 25 years ago, I ended up developing a temporal lobe lesion, which has now given me a lifelong history of refractory partial seizures, where I take Keppra for. I used to take another medication, Lamictal or Lamotrigine, the chemical name, for my grand mal seizure activity. But after the last 20 years or so, I no longer needed them because I no longer had those grand mal seizures. So maybe genetic epilepsy in some cases has a trigger to actually turn on at a certain age and then turn off at another. But I know that, Shelley, when we get back, we'll talk about your type of genetic epilepsy because, you did describe about your hippocampus and all. Could be genetically what has happened to your hippocampus that could be triggering the seizures rather than having a genetic type of epilepsy. And then Lisa, where I can relate to you is I was once prescribed metformin, but the irony is that one of the side effects was seizures, so I never took it. And I ended up having to go on it. Well, it was that way for me because of my genetic and taking the other medications at the time.
Okay.
Lamictal.
And another side effect is nausea too, right?
Big time. Big time.
And of course, nausea could be a trigger of an aura. So either way, when we get back on this episode of Frank About Health, we're going to explore further the comorbidities of both Shelley and Lisa when we return right here on TalkRadio.nyc and on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitch. We'll be back in a few.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on TalkRadio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Broncu, host of The Hard Skills on TalkRadio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on TalkRadio.nyc.
Are you a business owner? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you work with business owners? Hi, I'm Stephen Fry, your small and medium-sized business or SMB guy, and I'm the host of the new show, Always Friday. While I love to have fun on my show, we take those Friday feelings of freedom and clarity to discuss popular topics on the minds of SMBs today. Please join me and my various special guests on Friday at 11 a.m. on TalkRadio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to a Stage of Epilepsy version of Frank About Health. We're with our guests today, Shelley Thiemann and Lisa Goodman. Shelley, you had just talked about a very intriguing, life-changing version of epilepsy that it sounds more to me that it was an aspect of neurological health that you were born with. Was your hippocampus not fully developed since you were born? Or did that become injured as a result of an epileptic seizure? After you unmute.
Unmute, yeah.
Doesn't like long fingernails for some reason. But it's funny because the neurologists are not really sure what happens. It's just like, oh, we're not sure what medication to give you to stop your epilepsy. We're just going to play a medication game. We're just going to play a examination game with your brain too and see what happens.
When was your first seizure again? As an infant, as a child?
Interesting story. I grew up in the far Arctic of Canada. My dad was with the RCMP, so the locations that we were in were fly-in only. So I used to faint as a child quite a bit, and I had asthma. I had asthma, so they were more worried about my asthma than my fainting. And when I was around 9 years old and we moved down, well, more south into Canada, it was hot, and they just kept saying, well, you got low blood pressure. It's hot here. You're really tiny. Yeah, you just faint a lot. That was it. And they never really diagnosed you because I'm 50, almost 53 now. And back then they didn't really diagnose you. And up here, healthcare is free, but they still, unless you're having seizures, and I wasn't. I didn't have my first grand mal seizure until I was 21 years old.
And then when did the fibromyalgia become diagnosed?
Not till after my 40s.
Okay, so all in all, did you go through your young life and younger adult years thinking you had epilepsy or thinking you had all these other disorders with seizures on the side? What was your perspective?
I thought I had really bad asthma with a side touch of epilepsy once in a while if I stayed out in the sun too long or if I was drinking alcohol in the sun. So I avoid alcohol. I don't really use alcohol at all. And so, and just avoid triggers, obviously strobe lights, certain things that, are obvious to epileptics that will trigger a seizure. But then I found when I lived in Australia for 2 years and had one seizure in 2 years. And when I moved back to Canada, within the first 3 days I was back in Canada, I smashed my face in and almost busted my nose, 2 black eyes. got rushed to emergency. I'm pretty sure they thought my husband was trying to kill me, and which was not the case. And yeah, it was quite shocking. But after that, my epilepsy just went crazy. And my one neurologist in Canada actually told me, well, if your epilepsy was so good in Australia, why don't you just move back to Australia?
Environmental conditions, basically.
So a lot of the conditions where I live, it would be like similar to somebody living in Colorado. We have a lot of warm winds that blow over the Rocky Mountains, and that air pressure change constantly all the time really messes with my brain. So when we have a really warm day in the winter and the winds are blowing, my head wants to explode and my epilepsy goes crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people can relate to this. So when it comes to air pressure or pressure storms coming in, their epilepsy gets worse. People will have seizures or can feel the pressure building up in their heads.
Exactly. Like right now, the back of my head feels like somebody just bashed it in with a baseball bat. So you can feel it already back here, and then the pains move all over my brain. It's bizarre, but you just take it day by day.
So, Shelley, would you then say that it was the medications you were taking coupled with the environment you were in that was influencing all of your various illnesses, from the fibromyalgia to the seizure activity to the asthma?
Probably. That would be my guess.
So then, all in all, you basically had lived, like, this is Mental Health Awareness Month. One could say that for you, because your quality of life was very triggering, because you were trying to manage all of these incidences based on where you were living, also the perceptions you mentioned earlier. People thought your husband was beating you up. That's the perception, because they don't know what's happening with you internally. Yes. So that in itself can become, would you say you have a form of PTSD or any other kind of mental health issues that are prominent for those with epilepsy?
Absolutely. And I think that I try to deal with PTSD as best as I can. And like I said, the laws are different in Canada than they are in the United States. I cannot take antidepressants. They make me crazy, like absolutely crazy. And I suffer every bad side effect from them. I've been microdosing psilocybin for 5 years now. And the improvement in helping repair the brain receptors along with the CBD, because I do a full spectrum CBD as well. So that's helping repair some of those receptors in my brain that have been damaged. And it's just really amazing how much psilocybin helps with the depression part of it. And I don't really deal with depression because it is just what it is each day.
So having a diagnosis is also, well, here, let me just mention that, having a diagnosis is very overwhelming and very anxiety provoking. And you said before, Lisa, that after having a seizure, you feel a lot of anxiety the next day, and
big time.
Yeah,
go through the funk and the depression. It's like, here we go again, it's terrible. And I mean, the anxiety of it, like I said, just so scared to go to sleep, but knowing you have to. And I mean, it's just a catch-22. It's tough.
And you have a lot of responsibilities. You have to go to, you work, and you're a mother as well.
I'm a stay-at-home mom.
Oh, really? Oh,
I have
okay. So
a 15-year-old. She's the best, and she's very supportive of mom. But it is hard, not being able to drive, pick her up from school. I feel like that part of my life is just like zapped from me. And I'm like, I feel this big sometimes. And I mean, I know that's normal, but it's still hard.
Jeff, I was just going to say that it seems as though that in both Lisa and Shelley's cases, because of the combination of their comorbidity along with their epilepsy, they have definitely become advocates to the nth degree. And I mean, I'm hearing Shelley's case and understanding that what is helping her the most at this time is medical cannabis. I mean, I know Canada has already been legalized with that for a decade now, or if not more. But here in the United States, we're 24 states now that I know of. New York was finally approved, I think, last year after COVID. But the thing is I did do testing for cannabis back in 2016 in Seattle, Washington, because that was the only place that I could do testing at the time. And I was working with the Canadian Marks Marine Pharmacy that I mentioned in order to keep my seizures under control while testing the cannabis. So I can understand the kinds of struggles that you, Shelley, had to undergo, not just mental health wise and not just with your other disorders like fibromyalgia, but it also looks as though.
Let me mention one thing about
wait,
CBD
Jeff, I'm going to finish this thought.
Okay.
Shelley, in terms of your advocacy work, did you become more so an advocate because of cannabis, or was it for some other social issues related to regulating your health?
No, it was more of so becoming an advocate for cannabis, because having a genetic form of cannabis, or a genetic form of epilepsy, I'm sorry,
Sure.
and having to go through 12 forms of medication that absolutely destroyed my life. Why couldn't I have just gone on CBD first, like a full spectrum, or like 1-to-1 THC, and just started that regimen right from the beginning and never had the bad side effects? So I think with children, especially with children, they don't need to be taking those drugs. Those drugs are not good for people. And they've been proven that they're not good for people. And a lot of people's body rejects it. And a lot of people I speak with who have epilepsy who come to my Instagram site to talk to me about it. And I mean, finding out that I couldn't take benzos anymore and I was going to rely on medical cannabis for my epilepsy, I thought I was going to die. I was terrified. I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And just put all your faith into, hopefully I have the best suppliers and stuff like that, and can keep a consistent supply going too is a big deal as well. So
Right.
That's stress on top of it too. So
Jeff, you were going to say?
Well, I was going to say that when it comes to CBD products, you have to find the right product, because some are better quality than others. And, and also when it comes to THC products, it's not for everyone. And sometimes it can be addictive too.
Right. Well, we're about to take our second break, but all this talk about cannabis and earlier metformin, and not to mention about medications, whether they have worked or haven't worked, or whether you're still taking them or not, I think we're going to focus that conversation, plus explore a little bit more of Lisa's comorbidity in the next segment. So please stay tuned right here on TalkRadio.nyc and on Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, and LinkedIn, and we'll be back in a few.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on TalkRadio.nyc, I host a program, Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on TalkRadio.nyc.
Were you an essential worker during the pandemic? If you needed to learn stages of epilepsy, did you depend on advocates? Did you use new innovations to cope with mental and neurological issues? Maintaining high quality of life and keeping good mental health are what we all strive for. I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each week top healthcare influencers, professionals, and innovators answer these questions and more. Stay tuned on Thursdays at 5 p.m. on TalkRadio.nyc, and I will continue to be frank about health with all of you.
Are you a business owner? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you work with business owners? Hi, I'm Stephen Fry, your small and medium-sized business, or SMB guy, and I'm the host of the new show, Always Friday. While I love to have fun on my show, we take those Friday feelings of freedom and clarity to discuss popular topics on the minds of SMBs today. Please join me and my various special guests on Friday at 11 a.m. on TalkRadio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back. As I said before we closed out the second segment, medications can definitely rule or hurt you depending on the type of epilepsy that you have. Not necessarily hurt, that might be the wrong word here, but it could be just not the right fit because of the fact that if you have genetically based epilepsy, or if you have retractable epilepsy, or worst case scenario, you have Lennox-Gastaut syndrome, or you probably, like in Lisa's case, have nocturnal seizures, or you're taking medication for other issues. Again, this is Mental Health Awareness Month. You could be taking antidepressants, antipsychotics, or even just mood stabilizers. And not to mention, if you're having diabetes, you could be taking metformin. So that all being said, there's a combination of what is the right drug? Is it genetically prescribed for you or manufactured for you? Does it come from the right area? As I said, I prefer the medications from Canada. I think they actually make them, manufacture, produce, and distribute all in the same country. You know, simultaneously, there's the interactions between medications. So I think we're going to devote this segment, and Jeff, I'll need your help on this, in determining what are the right medications depending on your type of epilepsy. And of course, we want to really look at Shelley and Lisa's case closely. As a little backdrop, as I said, I have been through the gamut. Dilantin, Tegretol, Gabapentin, Depakote, Lamictal, all the way up to Keppra. And I'm only on Keppra to this day. Got tested for cannabis, did not work for me. But it actually made me gain lots of weight, and as a result, I was prescribed metformin. And as a result, I did not take metformin because I didn't want to have more seizures. It was like going a vicious circle. But it was genetically based predominantly, and I am taking the Keppra just to prevent the retractable partials. But otherwise, I'm living a decent quality of life at this point, and I do know that when you are aware of what your core illness is, you can probably gauge what the right medication is. Although I'm a proponent of medical cannabis, I wish it had worked for me because I think it would also enable a curative or some kind of support for any of the anxiety disorders or any of the PTSD reactions that you probably experienced, Shelley. So that all being said, Jeff, how would you want to give your overview of your life with epilepsy and your medications and which ones have worked and which ones haven't?
Oh, that's really tough. I mean, I always say that epilepsy is unique in every case. And when it comes to anticonvulsants, really, it depends on the person because really you can have a bad reaction at any time to any medication. And I, in my case, I always say that, you know, anticonvulsants, you're more dependent on them than you realize. You know, and when it comes to Keppra, I tried to get off of it a few times, but I went into status epilepticus a couple times trying to go off of it. So it really, I feel like I'm on it for good because really, anytime I've tried to go off of it, it seems like I'm dependent on it. My brain won't let me go off of it. So, you know, that could be with other cases like when I was on Lamictal, you know, one day you know, it just stopped working. I went into a psychotic break. You know, it just, you know, that's how it is with some medications. You just have bad reactions to it, you know, and, you know, there's a lot of behavioral changes as well sometimes with, you know, some of these medications that could be used for, you know, bipolar as well. So, you know, there are many anticonvulsants that are also used for mental illness. So, you know, of course, it's going to change chemically in your mind, you know, in your brain. So,
So, Lisa, tell me, what has been your stream of anticonvulsants? I mean, you're still taking metformin as well, right?
Yes, I take the Keppra for my seizures and metformin for the diabetes. And I mean, they work, you know, like you have the side effects though. Not so much Keppra. I haven't had any problems with that, but metformin, oh yes. It will tear your stomach a piece.
Yeah. In your case, were you a candidate for those shots like Ozempic or Wegovy or Mounjaro or any of those that
my doctor didn't bring that up. He was just like, here, try metformin, let's see how it works. And I mean, It takes about, well, for me, it was a good month for me to get kind of adjusted to it. Now there are days where it's back to square one. My stomach's hurting, the nausea, don't want to eat. It's miserable. So,
You have to find the right dose for it, right?
for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
I started out only doing 500 milligrams twice a day. And levels were kind of getting okay, but he still wanted them to drop, and it's genetic. I have diabetes on both sides of the family, so parents have great genes. And then bumped me up to 1,000 milligrams twice a day, and it was terrible at first.
So did it help you lose weight, or?
Oh, I've dropped weight for sure. I think
so that's
a
benefit there, right?
It's a benefit. I mean, I wasn't, like I said, it's genetic. It wasn't the way I was eating, because I was doing like keto, Atkins, even for like the seizures, wanted to see if that would help. But yeah, definitely dropped a good 25 pounds for sure.
So that being said, what is your A1C levels now? Did you notice a decline as a result?
Oh yeah. After doing the 1,000 milligrams twice a day, he was like, I want you under 7. And in my next appointment, it was like 6.5. And I was like, wanted to keep dropping, but definitely made a big difference.
And have you seen an improvement in the technology when it comes to the sensors?
What do you mean?
When sensing your blood sugar, have you seen an improvement when it comes to the technology?
Oh, for sure. I'm supposed to be taking it every day, which I do slack. I do not do that every day, but just I can tell when days like the blood sugar is like dropping. The heart will start racing. I'll start getting a headache, and I'm like, I've got to get something in my body, even if it makes me sick. Got to stay on top of that.
Awesome.
So I usually always
you monitor your blood sugar with your phone?
And no, I have the little prick stick thing that you take and you put the little tab in it. I do that. So I haven't gotten that far up in my technology yet.
Okay.
But even though you mentioned, Lisa, that you were not a candidate for all those weight loss shots that they're offering out in the marketplace, were you ever considering or a candidate for medical cannabis the same way Shelley has?
Was I considering it? Yeah, I've thought about it, but I have tried it and it didn't go over so well with me. It made me more anxious, and I don't know if that was just mind playing tricks on me, but didn't really work for me. I do take an anti-anxiety medication to help with that, because as soon as I'm in the doctor's office, blood pressure is going nuts. It's crazy. I think I'm just always scared. I'm like, what's the bad news now? But I take Klonopin for that, which has an anti-convulsion in it too. So I'm like, I got that extra, with Keppra. So
Lisa, in your case,
you very careful with the Klonopin? You don't take it every day, right?
No, only if I'm having a panic attack. I mean, I can manage anxiety. I do have my things that I do, reading, just trying to get out of my head, or take a nice bath, but only when I'm having that panic attack, that's my emergency,
Okay.
So Lisa, in your case, with respect to all of the disorders that you're going through in terms of, well, not disorders, but rather the medications you're dealing with and reducing your weight and managing your diabetes, it seems as though your seizures are predominantly symptomatic of your main illness, which is diabetes. No one calls you an epileptic patient, do they?
No, they tell me, my neurologist said, we don't say epilepsy with you. You have a seizure disorder. And I'm
so
like,
it's like a post-traumatic seizure disorder,
yeah,
which we've talked about on the show.
Yeah, my seizure started 10 years ago, and I was diagnosed with diabetes 2 years ago. So, as far as that's connected, it could be. I have no idea.
One was more dominant, and then 10 years later, the other one took more dominance. So,
Correct.
but unlike Shelley and myself, it's not genetically based. Although you did say you have a sibling and your father with epilepsy,
Right.
so maybe you're just triggered, or you have a predisposition to having seizures. But it looks as though that it's under control with Keppra.
It is.
And there is the question as to why you're still having nocturnal seizures. Maybe it's an interaction with the two medications you're taking.
I have no idea. I just started the metformin, like I said, 2 years ago. I've been taking Keppra for 10. I don't know. I don't know if it's just can't explain it. They can't really either. So I'm like, I don't know. But it's a vicious cycle
Has there ever
of
been the potential of you getting your license back? Have you ever been seizure-free long enough?
in the state of South Carolina, where I'm from, if you go seizure-free for 6 months, I mean, you can drive. But for me personally, there's always that thought in my head. I'm like, today's going to be the day that one's going to happen during the daytime. But no, I mean, even going 6 months seizure free, I stay very local. I don't go far off, and I let, somebody know, look, I'm fixing to go to the store, just so you'll know where I'm at, just taking precautions.
Well, we're about to take our next break, but before we do that, we're going to devote the next segment, just want to let everyone know, to pretty much what all of our futures are with respect to advocating for our own epilepsy. As well as, Jeff, I just want to wrap up that we've talked about several stages of epilepsy over the past year or so. We've done the auras, we've done mental health issues, we've done meditation, we've talked about, obviously now, comorbidities. What would you say in the whole stages of epilepsy spectrum we either have missed out on speaking of, or what else do you think needs to be made aware to the listening and viewing audience out there?
Well, I think when people have epilepsy, I keep emphasizing that they need to spread awareness about their case. They need to deal with their case in their own way. They need to figure out what medication is for them. They need to search the doctor that is right for them. They need to search the treatment that is right for them, and that might be an alternative treatment, like Shelley searched out medical cannabis. So there is many different aspects of the spectrum, because like we talked about, migraines might be on the epilepsy spectrum, and like ADHD might be on the epilepsy spectrum, and autism. They try to put all these things together, but really they're also unique in many ways. So.
And then we're also living with any kind of brain illness like epilepsy, autism, ADHD, whatever. You just have to internalize it all, be focused and aware of what it is, and learn to advocate for yourself with all the communities you deal with, and especially the medical community. And when we return, I want to hear more, Shelley, about a lot of the differences in Canada that exist for people, especially after what you have been dealing with most of your life. So stay tuned as we conclude this episode of Frank About Health right here on TalkRadio.nyc and on all of our socials, and we will be back in a few.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills on TalkRadio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on TalkRadio.nyc.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on TalkRadio.nyc, I host a program, Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on TalkRadio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on TalkRadio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back. Okay, so Shelley, I'd like to learn more about what you think the key differences between Canada and the US are, especially for those like us living and treating our epilepsy.
I think it's just honest education from neurologists now. And I find the Canadian neurologists, 12 years ago when I first said that, okay, well, I guess I'll try CBD and see how it goes. Now, when most people think about people treating epilepsy with cannabis, the first thing they think about is, oh, you're just smoking joints. Well, that's the furthest thing from the truth. The amount of weed I actually smoke is very minimal because a lot of the products I use are in capsule form. And I really have no need to get high anymore. And I don't really do it recreationally anymore because it's really not a need. And so it just really helps. And I think when I first started advocating for the use of medical cannabis, there was no education out there on how much a person should dose. With all the different types of epilepsy out there, with childhood epilepsy, with just adult epilepsy, like it's a very scary thing to say, okay, well, yeah, I'm going to try medical cannabis. Is it going to work for me? Well, I guarantee you for the first month it's not going to. But just having an honest education and having somebody who's knowledgeable enough to educate you on which gray market dispensary you should be using, because nothing that's legal in Canada works for my epilepsy. And this is something I'm still advocating my government for, because our prime minister is I won't put out that word right now because yeah, okay. Yeah, hopefully he's not in office for long, because even he can't run a drug program. But everything he's done as far as legalization for the Canadian medical program has just been not helpful for anybody with epilepsy. So, I mean, we have transdermal patches that are available with CBD on them. So when somebody like Lisa's super nauseated and she can't eat, and that's going to affect her epilepsy because she can't keep her meds down and stuff like that. Well, you can put a transdermal patch on and get your CBD in you. So you're getting your meds in you and get your nausea under control. And then you can take a tincture of THC underneath your tongue that you're going to keep there for a minute. And then you're going to take some water with electrolytes, and that's going to get your nausea under control. So I can take a capsule of a good 1-to-1 of a full spectrum CBD and a full spectrum THC. So it's got over 250 of the compounds of what makes cannabis fantastic. Is not just CBD, it's not just THC, it's whole plant medicine, and it's knowing how to use it. And
it's a whole holistic approach.
Exactly. And that coincides with psilocybin at the same time. At first, when people were telling me about it, I thought that they took too many mushrooms, probably. But then they said, give it a try. And so I started microdosing, and I was like, oh, this is actually improving my mood. And I'm actually feeling a lot better about life. And I mean, every day is not all sunshines and roses. I mean, we all have bad days, but it gets rid of that depression. And I just want to stay in bed and never get out of bed because my body hurts too much, or, I had another seizure. Like, no, you got to get up every day.
Right.
With the regimen you're taking right now, do you find yourself more stabilized even if you continue to have seizures?
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, because I know before we got on the air, you were talking about other solutions that might be available to those. Not that I'm advocating or recommending them, but I guess they're actually available more so in Canada because I don't hear about it as much here in the United States.
Well, with my type of epilepsy, I think the hardest part is knowing that it's terminal, and knowing that is super scary for me. And just my quality of life, I have no quality of life. I spend 90% of my life in bed. I might look okay, but I'm not okay. And I'm really, really sick. And I have 3 beautiful grandchildren. But it's just so hard just to even have them because I'm scared I'm going to have a seizure, or else I know I'm going to have a seizure because I deal with partial seizures still all the time. And it all has to do with hormones and perimenopause. And I don't see this ever getting better. My brain's never going to get better. It's progressively going to get worse. And in Canada, we have a program called MAID. And it's an assisted dying program for people with terminal illnesses. And fortunately, my epilepsy meets the criteria, but you still have to go through a counseling aspect of it. And I'm taking it one step further and going through a psychologist aspect of it because I want to make sure I'm making the right decision. Because a lot of the side effects from epilepsy medications are not good. I mean, people commit suicide. People think bad thoughts. I've gone down some very, very dark paths with some very, very bad epilepsy meds. And it was not good for my brain and my mental health at all. And so with me, I worked in palliative care as a nurse for years, and I want to be able to decide when it's my time. I want to be able to decide when my quality of life is that bad. That's it. I can call my doctor and say, okay, today's the day.
So it is in Canada, it is an actual law or regulation within the health profession to allow such a program?
Yes.
Interesting. I mean, the way I look at it is that it is an option, and as the advocate of your own health, it's an option that if you feel that it is going to add value to your story, then I vouch for it. But I know that in the United States, with all the political system that we have here and the regulations on all levels of healthcare, whether it's the technology, whether it's the medicines, whether it's the healthcare providers, the insurance companies, this would be something that would be against the law, I perceive, because I don't hear much about any support of this unless it's really like terminal cancer or terminal something else, something more tangible. But it's controversial in nature, and I'm saying to everybody out there that this is an option that Shelley is looking into, and from what she's already told us all, including Jeff and Lisa, is that her family is aware of it too. So there's a support system in place. There is a psychologist in place. You're obviously aware of the legal rights that you have if you were to enact in that solution for you. And therefore, everyone should take a lesson from Shelley's example and understanding that if something that you never dreamed was an option for how to treat your quality of life, but it is also medically and legally qualified due to the circumstances, it's out there for you as food for thought, But at the same time, I just wish you well, Shelley, in terms of whatever your future plans become. And it looks as though that at least in the duration of between now and that deciding date, that the cannabis has been predominantly working for you over the anticonvulsants. Is that safe to say?
Absolutely. And I'll continue to advocate for that, and I'll continue to educate people on that, because I'll never stop educating. I talk about cannabis and its benefits every single day. And
you do this on your Instagram page?
Yes, it is. And so please hit up my Instagram page. If you have any questions about anything I've talked about, hit me up, send me a message, join.
Awesome. Now, Lisa, how about you?
I was just concerned about you, Shelley, just making sure that there is, no agenda being pushed upon you, and that you still know that life is a gift, and you want to, to live your life the best you can, and that you're searching for meaning. And so,
I think being a palliative care nurse for so long and watching people, helping them through their final stages of life when I was healthy, was the greatest gift of all, because they taught you what the gift of life was truly. And so when you find out that you're terminal with something, I want to choose when my time is. I don't want epilepsy to decide that day for me, and my husband to come home and find me that way. So in Canada, this is something I've thought about this for like over 5 years. So this is not something I took lightly. This is a matter of just personal health and personal choice.
Okay, and so Lisa, before I disappeared for a moment, I was going to say, well, I think, Jeff, you were saying something, and then Lisa, I was going to ask about your future story with your epilepsy. So what did I miss?
I don't think you missed anything. I was listening to Shelley. She's amazing. Okay. I've loved hearing your story. I share most of my stories on Instagram. My Instagram is Aphrodite1982, and yeah.
Okay, and thank you for coming on, Lisa.
Oh, absolutely, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, so that's great.
And so, Jeff, in terms of your story, you have been basically having your stages of epilepsy Instagram following for the last couple of years since your book came out, Fading in the Dark, or was it even before then?
Yeah, it was 2002 it came out. Yeah. So.
Okay, and so what are your plans going forward with regards to stages of epilepsy, the Instagram group that you have?
Well, it's going to be a busy year for me, but hopefully I will come out with a book in 2025. So about family and epilepsy.
Okay, awesome. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think we're about the end of the show. I could be wrong. Give me a ping, Logan, to tell me how many more minutes I have left, because I just want to wrap up by saying, first of all, Shelley, like I echo what Lisa said. Basically, I look at your story as you definitely are a hero in your own right. You've had to incorporate genetic epilepsy with other kinds of illnesses. You discovered living in different environments was actually helpful for you. You've become an advocate in your own right for options that you have to consider for you and your family. And at the same time, one can say that even though you were born with genetic epilepsy, that it was the comorbidities that defined you and also made you become a fighter for what you've had to endure. Lisa, at the same time, your comorbidities are what you managed to control, and simultaneously your seizures as well. I still have my own, stoic reactions whenever a partial seizure is happening, but I take my Keppra and I'm calm. So I think you're learning to live life as you are. And yes, if there's any suggestions that I could give, try to talk to your doctors to see if maybe those shots, Ozempic and everything. Oh, wait a minute, I'm getting the indication we've got to go. All right, Jeff, thank you again for another episode of involving stages of epilepsy and Frank About Health. And ladies and gentlemen, I will be back next week with my 3rd anniversary show. More information to follow. Thanks for tuning into this show, and we will see you next week. Take care.
Bye.